What is going on, YouTube? Andrew Miller from Hook'emHeadlines.com. Coming back at y'all today with a winter workouts update. Talking about some of the early enrollees from Texas's 2023 signing class. You know, what they've been able to do, the impressions they've been able to make, and some of the feedback we're getting and some of the buzz we're getting from the first couple of months for some of these more highly touted 2023 guys early in their time on the 40. Uh, I'm going to take a look at just a few of the guys from the 2023 class. Among the early enrollees, I believe we're at 14. Um, and so I'm not going to take a look at every single one of them, but some of the guys that are standing out, some of the names to watch heading into spring ball, and some of the guys that have really made an impression early on. I'll start at the top here. And, the name that everyone wants to hear about from the 2023 class, five-star quarterback Arch Manning. My understanding is that outside of the whole lost student ID debacle that he's faced a couple of times now, that he's made a really, really good impression on the coaches. That was kind of from day one. He's been one of the more active early enrollees in terms of just the frequency of which he's been getting out and doing throwing drills on his own, some throwing sessions with some of the fellow wide receivers that were early enrollees from the 2023 class. Of course, getting right down to work in the film room, but just overall with the way he's carrying himself. And I've heard this term used of just like a business-like mentality that he's taken in terms of his mindset since he's arrived on campus. The transition for him has been seamless. It seems like in the first couple of months, and I mean it's still really early, and we haven't even started spring ball yet. Spring ball was just announced that it'll start on March 6th, which given that they have 15 practices, and then you got the spring game on April 15th at DKR. I'll check on the 15th just to make sure I'm correct there, but you're starting March 6th, so it's only a few weeks away now. And so Arch is doing all the right things, it seems like, so far, and he's getting himself in a position to where, I think he's really going to make an impression in spring ball, and that, I don't think he's really going to be looking like a freshman out there. So, taking a lot of the right strides so far from what I've seen from him. Another guy that I think I could spend an eternity talking about so far is Cedric Baxter Jr., five-star running back. A lot of recruiting services had him rated as the number one running back in the nation. By my understanding, he has come in and really taken the bull by the horns. And he, we did an article on the site talking about how the impression he's made. He's acted like a sponge, just in terms of absorbing information. Getting some mentorship in the winter conditioning program, things like that. And he's kind of taken advantage almost of an opportunity to gain some early recognition, make a really, really big impression on the coaching staff from day one in the winter conditioning program, because and this is something, like I said, we've talked about on the site as well. Jonathan Brooks and Jaden Blue are both recovering from injuries. Jonathan Brooks, this is well documented, had hernia surgery in the last couple of months. And so I think he'll be a participant in spring ball, but full participant from day one. And he's been limited in winter conditioning, if not held out through a good bit of the program. And so that has provided Baxter some extra opportunity, some extra attention from the coaching staff, namely Tashard Choice. And, Jaden Blue, another guy that was figured to be a top 3 or 4 guy in this running back room. And so, like I said, this has really opened the door for Cedric Baxter to really make an impression literally from day one that he was on campus. So, like I said, he's come in and impressed right away. He's kind of, I won't say he's looked the part, because he still needed to put on a little bit of weight. And I think that's still going to be something to watch as you go through spring and then summer workouts. Hopefully he gets around probably 220, 225. He came on a campus around 215. I think the goal for him was probably putting on around 5 or 10 pounds to really be able to compete, set the tone from day one, because he's going to be a guy that's going to be on the 2 deep from the regular season opener this fall. So, again, guy that I couldn't say enough about from the impression he's made from the time he arrived on campus up until now. And I will assume that we're going to be hearing the same things about him during spring ball. Again, he's really blown a lot of people away from my understanding. Another one that I've heard a lot about, if we're turning the attention to the defensive side of the ball here, is Malik Muhammad, 4 or 5 star cornerback, depending on the recruiting surface that you looked at. Muhammad was a guy that, came onto campus, and I think there were a lot of people that expected him to compete for at least a spot on the 2 deep at field corner, more than likely. I think that's the best fit for him long term. But even in the near term, it sounds like he's been able to that he's really been able to catch the attention of the coaching staff and a lot of his teammates right away, especially the fellow early enrollees. Heard a couple of things where he really has just kind of commanded in a sort of alpha way some of the attention in the locker room, especially among the early enrollees, where it's you can really tell that he's going to be one of the guys leading this defense a couple of years down the line. And this is something that could start in spring ball where, if he's really looking the part from day one in spring ball, this is an open competition that could be at field cornerback, because you have Deshaun Jameson leaving campus. They're leaving for the NFL draft in the 2023 class. And, it's probably going to be a pretty open competition by my understanding. I think Terry Joseph and Pete Kwiatkowski are going to want guys like Gavin Holmes, Terrence Brooks, Malik Muhammad, the guys that are going to be involved in this field corner competition in spring and in fall, to really give everything they've got and prove that they're the guy for week one. And so, again, from Muhammad's perspective, he really needed to, make a big splash from the time he arrived on campus. And my understanding is he's checked a lot of the boxes already. Winter conditioning, he's a guy that came in with his body right, mindset right, and has really showed that since day one. Another guy on the defensive side of the ball, by my understanding, that's commanded a lot of attention is Sydir Mitchell. He's big guy, 6'5", 6'6", about 330 pounds when he arrived on campus. And there were quite a few things, if I'm being pretty honest, that Mitchell needed to work on from the time he came on campus. He had some refinement that he needed to do in his technique. He could probably use a little bit of conditioning work, maybe shed a little bit of weight before he's really able to take a large number of rotational snaps for Texas defensive line. But this is a guy that's going to be expected to contribute right away. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the second string nose tackle behind Byron Murphy this fall. Like I said, in terms of his ability to take up space, the size that he brings to the table, the frame, wingspan, he definitely checks out there. And so, the fact that he's really getting down to work from day one, and, even though there are some challenges he's going to face throughout spring, the fact that he's already facing some of those head on and, showing some improvement, showing some strides already from what we're hearing is a major plus. I guess the last guy that I would mention here, if I'm turning the attention back to the offensive side of the ball, is the 5-star DeSoto wide receiver, Johntay Cook. I think getting Johntay on campus for spring is huge. He's a guy that can really set the tone in this wide receiver room. He's probably the most important piece and probably going to be the most impactful signee right away from the 2023 class at the wide receiver position. Texas also brings in DeAndre Moore as an early enrollee, and I think Moore is a guy that can also get some early reps. But Cook is the most talented of the bunch. He's the highest rated recruit of the bunch, and that's for a reason. He's a guy that is a tremendously technical route runner, is a guy that, I think if he can really get some physicality, add a little bit of weight, this offseason, and, really get his body right to compete at the Power 5 level, that, could get some maybe 4th or 5th wide receiver looks in this rotation this fall, and, really make an impact really early on. And, I mentioned Muhammad earlier in this video that, he's really made an impression of the sense that he's paying a lot of attention and kind of been a charismatic voice within the program, and really just showed that, this is a guy that's going to be a leader and set the tone a couple of years down the line, be one of the guys on this defense. And my understanding is Johntay Cook's shown a lot of those characteristics just on the offensive side of the ball. That's commanded a lot of the attention from his fellow early enrollees, from the offensive signees and early enrollees in this 2023 class. And, I think that's going to be a really important thing to set the tone in this wide receiver room and really make sure that it's set for the future, because, this is an important young group of wide receiver recruits that Texas brought in from the high school ranks in the 2023 class. Ryan Niblett I think he's going to be a future potential starting slot wide receiver. He's got all the talent in the world, a ton of straight line speed. And, I just think it's going to take a couple of years of development for him to get there. He's still a pretty raw guy. But like I said, a guy with all the talent in the world to make a major impact a couple of years down the line. And then DeAndre Moore, I think he's a little bit more ready to make an impact on this offense than a guy like Ryan Niblett. But, Moore's a guy that, flipped to Texas during the early signing period, wasn't as locked in with Texas, at least for as long as a guy like Johntay Cook, who committed during the summer, a guy like Ryan Niblett, who committed, I believe he was also a summer commit, but Ryan Niblett had some whispers late that, he was still taking some visits elsewhere, but, he's still a guy that had some of these relationships formed earlier with, the fellow Texas commits and was committed to the 2023 class before Moore. And so, like I said, for a lot of reasons, Cook is a guy that will be able to set the tone for some of these younger wideouts in the 2023 class. And, with Texas bringing in a new wide receivers coach, forming that connection with him early on and, really being able to get on the same page for spring ball is going to be huge. And so, like I said, the fact that we're hearing, a lot of positives and we're, getting a lot of good words from Cook this early on in his time on the 40 is a really positive sign, a few weeks before we're heading into spring ball here. So, I mentioned 5 names throughout this video. We got 3 names on offense. I guess in terms of what you would expect from the offense, these names aren't a huge surprise. You got Arch Manning, who's, kind of made a positive impact on this program and really caught the attention of like AJ Milwee, guys like that on this Texas staff right away. Cedric Baxter, who, like I said, looked the part and, really was ready to, I mentioned this before, take the bull by the horns right away in this running back room. And then Johntay Cook, who, like I said, is going to be someone that's be able to set the tone in this wide receiver room. On the defensive side of the ball, Sydir Mitchell, a guy that can make an impact in this defensive line rotation, this coming fall. And then Malik Muhammad, a guy that's going to be competing for reps at field corner. So, like I said, just a few names to watch there on each side of the ball and just, try to keep you guys a little bit up to date on what's happening with these early enrollees and some of the more talented blue chips from the 2023 classes. We're just a few weeks away from spring ball now. So for Andrew Miller, hook'emheadlines.com, that's pretty much it. Hook 'em.